What's up, YouTube? Back at it. This morning, this is Monday, July 7th. No trade in the AM session. I did have a video on that. Um, yeah, it was pretty much chop. And yeah, I said, I'm aiming for a good little PM session setup or a trade that's going to eventually come down towards these lows down here. It's paper trading. Don't worry about all that crazy stuff. But I was aiming for these lows for some paper trading, not paper trading, for a daily bias basically. So we had the SMT larger time frame that would take us down into these relative equal lows towards our daily or weekly target of down there in that weekly fair value gap. So a little something new that I used for the PM session. I was basically kind of mixed bias. I didn't want to basically, because if you take a look, we have this wick on NASDAQ on the daily. And if you decide to go on the 1 minute and then you start to look, we got some movement over the lunch session. We just had this crazy dump, and then we tagged in our sell side, which is those relative equal lows I was just talking about. And once we tag there, I don't really have any more sell side for the day because, we basically have a majority of sell side taken. There's no reason for us to go lower, I feel like, for the day. So then this is where we go on to our macro. So, obviously the 210 to 150 to 210 macro was nothing. And then eventually we took out that sell side. And then if you see here at 222 to 230, we did have an SMT with ES at those lows right there. And what did this tell me? This basically told me that, what the heck? Hold on a second. This basically told me that we are not looking for lower prices anymore. And I like how we have some significant kind of, structure below these lows. So I can kind of identify this low as a protected low. And now this is where we're going to go to ES. On the 2 minute is very clean. So again, 2 minute fair value gap entry, but I want to start from the bottom here. So we did have our SMT, and right here we broke structure. So we had our liquidity sweep, and this is also this order block right here is a larger time frame 1 hour order block. I usually identify it as the last candle, or you can identify it as the entire down move. And as you can tell, we tapped into consequent encroachment right there. So that's even more confluence. So then we tap down into the 1 minute time frames here, SMT. Then we go to our 2 minute and we see we have a break of structure. And then right here is our order block. This is the down move that basically caused this up move. You could also identify this as an order block. I believe on the 3 minute, we also have another order block. That was not 3 minutes. That was 1 minute. 1 minute, we have an order block right here. This down move caused this entire up move. So then what do? We immediately rebalance into there, and we start to head higher. And now this is where the 2 fair value gap strategy comes into play. Right here we have our first. Let me delete this fat box right here. Let me delete that. Right here we have our first 2 minute fair value gap, and then our second 2 minute fair value gap right there. And this is not during my macro time, and I like to stick to macro times in the PM session because it's price wants to move. It wants liquidity. It wants some kind of fair value gap, and then it'll move in a certain direction. And that's what I stick to in the PM session. The macros are very important to me. So then we had our first fair value gap down here, and we had a second one up here. And, I was kind of looking at that, but then I realized that we have this 1 minute order block that price just sharply rejected and started to push higher. So I'm like, okay, let's just disregard these 2 fair value gaps down here and use these 2, because remember, it's a 2 fair value gap sequence, and it needs to be in the same price leg. And usually, say if this is on the 1 minute, I would disqualify this. However, if there's an order block or a PD array that basically allows this section to be a different price leg than this section, then I'm going to use those 2 fair value gaps as a completely separate entity as a price leg. So what do? We want to see this bottom one be identified as a BA or breakaway gap, and then this one up here being our actual BISI that we are going to respect and then head higher. So what do you want to see? The entry style is a bullish candle close after a fair value gap respect of the upper one or lower one if you're bearish, whatever. So in this case, we had this bearish one, And then immediately after we had this bullish close, that already, we already had that tap into that fair value gap. So then you would target, what's it called? You would enter and then you target our buy side liquidity right here. And then obviously stop loss below that low, and then pretty easy bread and butter. There's nothing else to it. It couldn't get really simpler than that. The only thing I would improve on maybe would be honestly nothing. I mean, I only took this on one account and I made about 300. So I wish that I had better conviction in order to take it on all my accounts. However, that was kind of new to me. I never really traded this type of double fair value gap orientation. Because if you look in the morning of today, you'll kind of see that both of that fair value gap is in the same price leg. You see we have one here and a one here, and we respect it and then go lower. However, here we did have, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but then we disqualified these bottom ones because we already respected that 1 minute order block that shows us that we're pretty strong in one direction. So that's kind of what I want to, go off of, introduce into my, playbook. And I knew I was going to find a PM session trade because we had such a ranging AM session, but we definitely moved down and we took out a bunch of liquidity to the downside. If I can delete all these drawings, we had a major not even major. I think we had a pretty good retracement today, and that's going into our low on Wednesday. I want to take, and eventually that'll dip into our weekly fair value gap right here, and then right here. That's my kind of weekly target, and then I want to see expansion from there. That's longer time frame. Good trading day, plus 300 on the day. Let's get to it tomorrow, and that's all I gotta say. Have a good one, y'all. Peace out.